morning. Hello and welcome, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm the Reverend William Levwood. My pronouns are he and him. I'm the minister here at Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. And as we begin our service, I invite you to silence your phone if you're in person, to close the other windows on your computer if you're at home. At home or in person, take a deep breath and center yourself for worship. We open in welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land who live on in their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all together shall one day know full justice. Open minds, loving hearts, helping hands, and courageous spirits. The chalice is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist movement. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the loving heart. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the courageous spirit.
Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Paulette Lichtman-Panzer, and I love to sing Christmas carols, so thank you for that opening carol. I don't have a great voice. I could never join the choir, but I like to sing along quietly. This congregation is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world. If you're new to Accotink and would like to talk more about this church, just about anybody here can tell you about us. Our greeters, our minister, me, or look for somebody who has a cross-stitch name tag. And if you have a cross-stitch name tag, look around, see if there's a newcomer, and talk to him or her. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our social hour, online and in person, immediately after this service. We're glad that you came this morning.
I'm sure there's, maybe I should have done the opening words first. These opening words are a little different than what I've been doing recently, and they're from the musical group Tank and the Bangas. And I'm going to do my best to do them justice. You are. You and you and you and you are. You are very important and very special. Your body was made especially extravagant. It's like you're extra human. You are a force of skin and nails and heart, a walking Monet, your breathing art. Did you know that it takes the interaction of 72 different muscles just to produce human speech? That relative to size, the strongest muscle in your body is the tongue. I wonder where that fact was created from, seeing as though it is the weapons in our mouths that do the most damage to the ones that we say that we love. Did you know that the human brain contains over 100 billion nerve cells? So even if your nephew is acting like he vacations in hell, you should play with him. I'm sure your attention won't cause a deficient amount of nerve cells. You women, you blink nearly twice as much as these men. So keep looking, for she will notice you, but it may take her a little longer. But she's got to. The average human heart will beat over 100 million times in one lifetime. So I'm sure you'll find someone who won't mind skipping one for you. The left lung was made smaller than the right lung to make room for the heart inside of you. And your stomach needs to produce a new layer of mucus every 2 weeks so it won't digest itself. Lesson: don't ever become complacent while living your life on someone's shelf. There is a reason for every limb and interaction body. It's like God created me like an instrument. Every year, about 98% of the atoms in your body are replaced. You were born with 300 bones. And when you get to be an adult, you'll only have 206. You need to grow up. You need to grow out of things. When something doesn't belong, even your body knows when it's time for that thing to be replaced. Got to get over it. Got to keep on living. Too many more interesting lessons like 15 million blood cells are destroyed in the human body every second. If your body can get over it, you can get over that last relationship. Got to believe in your body. Got to believe in luck. The surface of the human skin consists of 6.5 square feet, so toughen up. Your body contains enough iron to make a 3-inch nail, sulfur to kill fleas on an average dog, carbon to make about 500 pencils, and enough water to fill a 10-gallon tank. Forget any superhero that existed before you. You, my love, are human. You're incredible. Invaluable. Oh, you're a life force. A life force? You're a life force. A life force. You're creatively created. You're handmade like praying. You, piece of the Creator. You, human, you. You, human, you.
This is the time for all ages, and what I'm going to read, both myself and Rev Lev, are excerpts from The Ancient Green by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Among the first people of the eastern woodlands, some lived in the sky world, where a great tree of life housed every kind of plant, all the grasses, the berries, trees, ferns, and even the mosses were tucked inside a knothole of the tree. Until one night, a great windstorm blew through the sky world and toppled the tree. The next morning, a young woman stepped close to the edge of the hole to look below. And as she leaned forward, the soil at the edge began to crumble, and as she fell, she reached out to the tree of life to steady herself, and the branch broke in her hand. Geese rose up from the water to catch her in their strong wings. Imagine her relief to be rescued in a warm embrace of soft feathers. From the beginning of time, we have been told that the very first encounter between humans and other beings of the earth was marked by care and responsibility. There was no land at this time, so temporarily the turtle's shell was offered to the woman for her to stand on. The Council of Water Beings decided to meet to figure out what to do next. Animal after animal dove deep, hoping to bring back some mud from the bottom of the ocean. But animal after animal couldn't do it. The distance was too far, the pressure was too great. Soon, only the muskrat was left, and the muskrat was the weakest diver of all. But incredibly, he was able to do it. Though it took his life, he returned with a small handful of mud tightly clenched in his paw. This mud Sky Woman spread across the turtle's back, and moved by gratitude, she danced, her feet caressing earth with love, spreading the mud with every dancing footfall. And so, that's how the earth was made, not by one alone, but from the wonder of the animals' gifts and human gratitude. Together, they created what we now know as Turtle Island. Sky Woman shared the gift in her hand, the branch of the tree of life. She scattered the seeds across the new layer of soil, and so the world became green with every kind of wild plant. She is our teacher of how the world works. Through an exchange of gifts, the practice of reciprocity among beings enables life as we now know it.
Among the contemporary peoples of Western science, a different creation story is told. There was, for the longest time, no land at all until land began to rise from the primordial sea, like the dome of an enormous turtle's back. Too harsh for life, the rocky land was devoid of green. All the green was sheltered in the safety of the water. Those myriad algae, their glistening threads, tumbling unicells, waving forests of kelpkin were all churning out oxygen, molecule by molecule, building an atmosphere from photosynthesis. And it was this planetary sunscreen, created by the breath of those water plants, that made it safe for the first someone to set the first leaf upon the barren land. Like Sky Woman on a new and empty world, the first land plants appeared on a bare surface where there was not even a muskrat paw full of soil to cover it. So these new plants had to attach themselves to the bare rock, huddle in the crevices and moist depressions to avoid drying out in the intense sun. These courageous pioneers had to unlearn the ways of their algal ancestors who were used to an easy life, bathed in water and nutrients, and withstand the harsh conditions of dry land. The colonists evolved means of holding water and scavenging minerals from the bare rock with their membrane-thin leaves. Imagine that moment, the first touch of green on the land, the first union of rock and leaf, the courage it took to venture forth and change the world. And change the world they did, leaf by tiny pellucid leaf, without roots or flowers or seeds or wood or really much of anything except their half-inch tall selves. These brave new beings were the mosses who 450 million years ago began a great experiment in evolution, the challenge of living on land, an experiment of which we are all a part, a story whose ending is unwritten. The mosses, tiny in stature, simple in form, nonetheless had a huge impact. When they crossed the border onto land, mosses slowly weathered and dissolved rock and sent those loosened nutrients trickling back to the sea. The marine algae, whose numbers had been limited by a scarcity of nutrients, now had plenty. And thanks to those mosses, they experienced a population explosion. In this new world made by mosses, their bodies becoming soil, more slowly than muskrats, pawful, but as powerful, making fertile homes for the ones who would follow. And follow they did in an evolutionary parade out of the ocean, an evolutionary parade of experiments in being green, in colonizing the new world. Since that momentous colonization of land 450 million years ago, when the first moss set leaf on rock, everything on Earth has changed. All those species, entire phyla gone, and yet the mosses are still here. The world is a wondrous place, truly. I'm going to talk this morning about windows, about opening ourselves up, ways to open ourselves up in wonder. In this wondrous world where the smallest, simplest beings can be the hardiest and the most enduring, as we learn from the example of moss. There are so many wondrous things in the world, more than enough to drench us in wonder for the rest of our lives. I'm going to give two more examples from the plant world. From evolutionary ecologist Monica Galliano, who had a hypothesis that plants have the capacity to learn and remember. So, like any good scientist, she decided to test this hypothesis by devising an experiment. And for her experiment, she used the plant Mimosa pudica, often called the sensitive plant, because if you touch it, its leaves instantly close. She developed an experiment where she would drop the plants. That's right. She dropped the plants, 15 centimeters only, onto a soft bed, but over and over, repeatedly, 60 times in a row, and then she gave them a brief rest, and she did it again. What she wanted to know was how long would it take for the plants to realize that there was no real threat and stop closing their leaves. Astonishingly, the plants stopped closing their leaves after only 3 to 6 falls. She also wanted to know if the plants could remember what they had learned. So she left them alone for a month. She didn't drop them for a month. And then she brought them out and she dropped them again. And this time, they didn't bother closing their leaves at all. Now, Gagliano had another question as well. She wanted to know if plants can make choices. So she took peas and she built them a maze with 2 different paths. Does that sound familiar? Mazes? They're used to test the intelligence of animals, right? Mice and rats, for example. So why not for plants? So the pea plants had a choice. They could grow to the left or to the right, and she placed the sound of water in one direction as an enticement. Oh, by the way, plants can hear as well. Plants need water, so they choose the direction, and they did in this experiment. The pea plants chose the direction where the sound of the water was coming from. Galliano points out that choosing to follow the sound of water, these pea plants are engaging in what can't be called anything other than a cognitive process of decision making. They don't have neurons, they don't have a brain, she points out, but they seem to be doing the same things that life with the brain does. These are just 2 examples, or 3 if you count the moss. And learning about these kinds of scientific revolutions of new knowledge is a kind of a window into wonder, a way of opening ourselves to wonder, but we can do this in so many ways. Our Soul Matters small group packets has multiple suggestions for windows to wonder this month. If you don't know about Soul Matters small group ministry, every month participants are given a handful of possible spiritual practices to engage in to connect them with a monthly theme. And the participants choose just one from these many suggestions of these practices, explore it throughout the month, and then meet together to share what they've learned, what they've noticed, what it's done for them. So this month's theme is wonder, and some of the practices I would describe as windows into wonder. One suggestion is taking an awe walk. That's a stroll in which you intentionally shift your attention outward instead of inward. The Soul Matters packet gives a lot of leeway in how to take an awe walk, telling us that it can be in a familiar place or somewhere brand new. It can be in a natural place or in the middle of a city. You can do it once or you can do it daily for a week. The point is to open outwardly to what's going on around you. In a general sense, or you might go through a progression, first focusing on sounds, and then colors, and then new things, and then whatever draws your curiosity. Some of you may remember that over the summer I spoke about taking a walk near a lake near my home as a kind of walking meditation. Well, I haven't done it in months, but this week I took a walk around a lake 3 days in a row, 2 of which were near my home, and 1 was at a new lake where, as I was walking, a hawk flew just a few feet in front of me before landing on a nearby tree. I must admit, I'm not very good at the awe walk. Much of my time, my focus is inward, distracted by my own thoughts. When the hawk flew across, I was actually leaving a video message for a friend. But some of the time, I'm able to open and wonder and notice the late autumn's muted oranges and dark browns, or early winter's bare branches, or that hawk shocking me into awareness. And then I notice, after these awe walks, not all the time, but in moments that come unexpectedly, like that hawk flying across my field of vision, I notice moments in my everyday life. And I begin to open that wonder window and keep it open. I'm learning to keep it open, just like the mimosa pudica that keeps its leaves open as it falls, just like that pea plant following the sound of water. Another suggested Soul Matters theme practice for this month of wonder is to write an ode to an ordinary moment. Or you could draw, you could make something out of Legos, you could take photos. The question I shared in our meditation last Sunday of asking yourself, what if I were seeing this for the first time or for the last time, is a paraphrase of a quote the Soul Matters packet offers as a window into experiencing an ordinary moment as an ode, a quote from Rachel Carson. So I haven't written an ode, but I do feel like I'm experiencing the world more and more as an ode, as a celebration of wonder, as an alive poem, as Joy Harjo puts it. The sound of my hungry belly, wonder. The smile on my child's face, wonder. The dark forest green of my shirt, wonder. The breathy buzz of a bass clarinet droning beneath the sharp punch of a trumpet on my stereo, wonder. The warmth and comfort of my home, wonder. Likewise, the crisp, cool air as night falls, wonder. Another option, the Soul Matters team has curated a collection of wonderful online offerings, 31 short videos of online wonder, 1 for each day of December for a practice they call taking a daily dose of wonder. Sneakily, I've shared 2 of these with you. Last week's Time for All Ages was from that collection. And this week's opening words were from that collection as well. I recommend you check out the live performance by Tank and the Bangers of Human, and some of the other daily doses of wonder. Speaking of Tank and the Bangers, elementary educators talk about how books can be windows into another's experience or mirrors of our own life. And when we widen our awareness, when we open our wonder window, it can sometimes rebound back at us like a boomerang and become a mirror. And we can notice what I asked you to share earlier, the wonder of our own self, our own bodies, our own personalities. Just as we notice that my child's smile is a wonder, I can notice that my own is as well. The flight of the hawk is a wonder, so is my body propelling itself around that lake, step by step. Hearing another's voice is a wonder. Being able to speak is a wonder. I could go on and on. That wonder window becomes a mirror, and then it becomes a window again. All of this wonder windowing can open us up in love, not only to ourselves, but to each other. Theologian Martin Buber differentiates between what he calls an I-it relationship and an I-thou relationship. You're in an I-it relationship with something or someone when your relationship to it is one of use, of how they're an instrument of use in your life. Often, the world is like this for us, a background or a resource. And so when we start to open up these windows of wonder, notice that many of the examples are with the natural world. When we start to open up these windows of wonder and notice that the trees are not objects, that they are alive poems too, we're practicing doing that with each other. We're practicing what Martin Buber calls an I-thou relationship, a relationship with another subject who exists on their own for their own reasons, whether they're of use to us or not. Regardless of whether they're used to us or not, we begin to relate to the world around us as another being, another presence, an I, thou. The window becomes a mirror, becomes a window again. Amy Banks, a former professor of psychiatry at Harvard, and now the director of advanced training at the Jean Baker Miller Training Institute of the Wesley Centers for Women. Try saying that 6 times fast. She's an heir to the lineage of relational cultural theory and relational psychology that I shared a bit about a month ago. In her book, Wired to Connect, she encourages us to invest our energy in relationships. Banks writes that healthy relationships release a full cascade of chemicals that ease the way for learning. These include serotonin for calm, norepinephrine for focus, oxytocin, which Banks writes in particular appears to propel both relationships and learning. But according to Banks, the neurochemical with the strongest capacity to encourage brain change may be dopamine, which is released by growth-fostering relationships as well as many other activities. I've spoken about this pleasure and pain and how it wants to move towards equilibrium, how our dopamine receptors adjust. They also can open and engage with multiple activities, whether it's looking at Instagram or looking into the eyes of another. So Amy Banks is encouraging us to take our attention from that inanimate object, which we move towards because it's less scary, it's more safe, it's more predictable. Human beings, as alive poems, are changing, they're unpredictable. But we can get that same dopamine zest, that shock of energy from our human relationships just as well as we can from alcohol or eating or Instagram. So we need to rewire often our pathways, our neural pathways to make that happen because we've developed habits. And that reminds me of the pea plants, right? They've got two choices, whether they can go towards the water or not. And often we imagine human beings these days as not even alive, as stimulus and response machines, just as we kind of think of plants. I really want to know if that pea plant, what choice it would make if sunlight was in one direction and water was in the other, and you bathed it in sunlight until it was dry and parched, or you drenched it in water until its roots were in danger of rotting. Would it choose a different path with those different circumstances? Certainly we as human beings would. Coming back to the importance of dopamine, neuroscientist Martha Burns tells teachers to think of dopamine as the brain's save button. Because when dopamine is paired with new learning, the neural pathways associated with that new information are solidified and retained. When we invest our energy in our relationships rather than those other activities I mentioned, we're reshaping our neural pathways. We're changing our habits and changing our brain at the same time, shifting away from a neural pathway that perhaps is undermining your health and certainly is not connecting you with others in your life, to a more desirable pathway that stimulates both dopamine to help solidify those new habits and healthy interpersonal connection to stimulate the connected brain, which with the serotonin decreases stress, with the oxytocin decreases isolation and improves learning. Do you see that we as human beings, we're sensitive plants too? We can't learn when we're under too much stress, and that's why we acquire these bad habits. So Dr. Banks encourages us to move towards those relationships that are calming, accepting, resonating, and energizing. Care, calming, accepting, resonating, and energizing. Away from those relationships that close us down, opening in wonder to the wonder of connection through the help of healthy, growth-fostering relationships of calm, acceptance, resonance that energize us. Like Mimosa Paducah, we can learn to keep our leaves open so that the light can shine in, so the love can shine in, so we can feel nourished. And we can remember this learning. We can open our windows to wonder. We can turn our walls into windows. Like moss providing nutrients for the ancient flora and fauna of the primordial ocean, like oxygen and light making an atmosphere that cooled the earth, like moss becoming soil that became a home for life to crawl up onto the shore and spread across the land, adapting and evolving. We can open to the windows of wonder. We can open to the windows of connection and care, so that that green light of energy grows from the center of our hearts and connects with other green lights, the green lights of human people and plant people, and spreads love until spirit fills the earth. May it be so, and may we be among those who make it so. Amen, 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 and blessed be.
Though Rev Love will extinguish our chalice flame, we carry within us what we kindled, the light of inspiration, the warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly out in the world. Well, I guess I'll have you stand up again. I probably shouldn't have had you sit down before, but it's good exercise, right? I invite you to join me now in our community blessing with these words of David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
You may be seated. Our closing words today are from Valerie Carr. To wonder is to cultivate a sense of awe and openness to others' thoughts and experiences, their pain, their wants and needs. It is to look upon the face of anyone or anything and say, "You are a part of me I do not yet know." Wonder is an orientation to humility, recognizing that others are as complex and infinite to themselves as we are to ourselves. Wondering about a person gives us information for how to love them. You can practice wonder for all others, animals, trees, living beings, and the earth. Wonder gives you information for how to care for them. Wonder is a wellspring of love.